Number 5. Corner shot. Urban combat is full of harsh, close-range fighting, so soldiers have been forced to adapt and create new weapons. By allowing its user to shoot around corners, the corner shot handgun attachment keeps you concealed, enabling the user to see through cover and fire. The item is only one of several cutting-edge innovations designed to help soldiers on the ground and give them an advantage against their opponents. The Kumlauf was one example of the early applications this kind of technology offers. After years of ferocious combat, Germany developed the Kumlauf, which was fitted to the STG-44 assault rifle in the final chapters of World War II. A soldier could see where the weapon was shooting because of its periscope and curved barrel extension. Germany anticipated that it could offer their troops a large advantage in close-quarters warfare and enable armored vehicle crews to shoot at hostile soldiers without coming under enemy fire themselves. The Kumlauf was ultimately a failure, though, in part because the barrel degraded much faster than the average gun, but more importantly because it was irrational to believe that such a small-scale strategy with only 100 or so of these weapons could cause a major shift in the balance of war in Germany's favor. The Kumlauf wasn't one of several German wonder weapons the US and USSR acquired after the war, and the idea was soon forgotten for the next 50 years. Ironically, Israel developed the next generation of the cover shooting idea. In the early 2000s, the leader of an Israeli counterterrorism unit named Lieutenant Colonel Amos Golan released his creation, the corner shot. The Kumlauf and corner shot were both intended to let soldiers and SWAT teams engage targets from behind cover, but this new iteration had a number of notable differences. Corner shot was superior to its predecessor from the war in a number of ways. Contrary to the Kumlauf, corner shot revolves the entire weapon instead of just spinning the bullet, a challenging task. To put it briefly, corner shot has a hinged frame that can accommodate a Glock, Beretta 92, or other handgun when mounted. The shooter receives a live feed from a video camera attached to the handgun, and a tactical light incorporated into the camera illuminates dim locations. A separate compartment also allows for the installation of a visible pointing laser. Would you try one out? Number 4. Cluster munitions. The dangerous and controversial cluster munition can be dropped from airplanes out of the sky like bombs, or can be fired off from ground artillery weapons. They often include hundreds of very tiny bomblets that are able to disperse randomly across large areas, covering up to several acres of land, sometimes even as much as a few soccer fields worth. In addition to killing and injuring civilians, many of whom are children, cluster bombs can target members of the military. Such weapons have been used since the start of World War II and were widely employed during the Vietnam War. The US dropped about 260 million small bombs on the neighboring country of Laos during the fight. The country is now home to the largest amount of cluster munitions pollution in the world. Handicap International, a non-profit group based in France, claims that only 40% of the smaller bombs included in a cluster ignite upon impact. This implies that even decades after being deployed, undetonated bomblets can still prove to be a serious hazard. At any time, the explosives, which are always positioned to detonate, could maim or kill a human being. Similar to landmines, they have a devastating effect and can occasionally make the impacted areas in its blast radius uninhabitable. Certain parts of Laos, for example, are still completely poisoned decades after the initial conflict. Cluster bombs have a particularly negative impact on civilian populations. For instance, according to Handicap International's 2021 Cluster Munition Monitoring Report, all victims during 2020 when the report was taken were civilians, with children accounting for 44% of the victims hurt or killed. According to the research, cluster bombs were extensively employed in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, killing at least 107 people. The study also states that 242 more suffered from injuries, but the true number is likely considerably higher due to incidents that were not recorded. Cluster bombs have been mostly outlawed since 2008 by the Oslo Convention because of their nefarious, long-lasting, and lethal effects. A global ban on small bombs went into play in 2010 and was seen as a turning point in the fight against the weapons. The nations that have joined have pledged not to manufacture, collect, or use nuclear weapons. The Convention on Cluster Munitions now has 110 participating regions. An additional 13 countries have signed the convention but have not yet ratified it into law, meaning they're not required to abide by its provisions. The agreement hasn't been ratified by some of the most powerful nations in the world, including Russia, the United States, China, India, and Pakistan. Particularly low membership rates are seen in Asia, the Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern Europe, which is concerning to say the least. Despite the convention's acceptance, the number of casualties from cluster munitions has dramatically grown, most notably in recent years as a result of greater usage of the bombs and improved record keeping. For example, in 2020, half of all cluster munitions injuries were reported in Syria, where they've been employed since 2012. These casualties were from both direct strikes and residual bomblets that had not been detonated. The Cluster Munitions Monitor from 2021 states that 16 nations are either considered to be developing cluster munitions at the moment or have retained the right to do so. Brazil, China, Egypt, Greece, India, Iran, Israel, Pakistan, North Korea, Poland, Romania, Russia, Singapore, South Korea, Turkey, and the United States are just a few of them. Handicap International claims that new cluster bombs are being actively developed in China and Russia as well. According to a later Bundestag investigation, TechMash CEO Alexander Kochkin publicly stated in May 2020 that his business would start shipping its newest cluster bombs to the Russian armed forces sometime in 2022. Hey there, real quick, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 3. M2 Browning 50 caliber machine gun. The M2 heavy barrel, sometimes called the Ma Deuce or the 50, has been used since 1933. The M2 saw widespread usage during World War II and was made by the Belgian company F15 Series from the design of a renowned gun designer named John Browning. The M2's round gave the weapon a wide range of uses for ships, aircraft, and troops. Since then, M2s have served in all American combat operations and in many other nations' militaries. The M85, which replaced the M2 in 1968, was then unveiled. An infantry support variant was also created, and it was placed on vehicles like the LVP-T7 amphibious assault vehicle as well as the M60 Patton tank. But the new machine gun had so many reliability problems that people went back to the old reliable M2. The M2 is still used on a wide variety of American vehicles and has been used with cutting-edge equipment like the common remotely operated weapon station. The 50 seems like it will be used for several more decades of military duty, especially with the recent cancellation of yet another probable M2 successor. Number 2. M1 Abrams Tank. The M1 Abrams tank is valuable thanks to 3 unique features. The M1A2 Abrams is described as twisted steel with tons of appeal by most tankers. Military and history buffs alike are already aware of the tank's popularity and strength. But what are the characteristics that set it apart? The ones that stand out most are its speed, armor, and firepower. The rifle never lets its users down and is off the charts in terms of protection and toughness. Additionally, it has an excellent mobility and speed. The 105mm L52 M68A1 rifled gun on the M1 Abrams is its starting weapon. A smoothbore gun is preferred though because rifling causes more tube friction. The M1 evolved into the M1A1 variant back in 1985, so the tank was equipped with a more potent 120mm L44 M256A1 smoothbore cannon during that stage of development. A strong emptied uranium shell and a high-explosive anti-tank round can be fired by the Abrams. Light armored vehicles and bunkers are usually destroyed by these high-explosive obstacle reduction rounds. When used as a shotgun shell against opposing infantry in open terrain, the canister rounds can fire over 1,100 tungsten balls. A 5th-generation kinetic energy round is currently under development as of December 2021. The U.S. Army Acquisition Support Center claims it will deliver a sub-caliber munition at a faster rate of speed in order to provide the most effective armor defeat capability in the world. The British-designed Chobham composite armor and rolled homogeneous armor steel plating make up the majority of the M1A2 Abrams armor panels. Additionally, it possesses protection made of depleted uranium. The hull and turret of the front of the tank have been enhanced with this high-density armor mesh, which is 1.7 times denser than the usual lead-depleted uranium and provides unparalleled protection. It has a flexible fuel 1500 horsepower Honeywell AGT 1500 gas turbine engine. A former design of helicopter engine, the gas turbine was modified to power these tanks. The range is 265 miles and the top speed is 42 miles per hour, which is quicker than most rival tanks. Additionally, the engine is quieter too. For almost 40 years, the M1 Abrams has been in continuous service. During the infamous Operation Desert Storm, it gave its greatest performance. Only 18 Abrams tanks were lost by the U.S., and 9 had to be evacuated from the fray due to resulting damage. Only 9 of them were completely destroyed, while the crew members of the tanks were left unharmed. The M1 Abrams is equipped with an intriguing gun, superior protection, and quick, nimble agility. These 3 features set them apart from all other tanks. But a number of improvements have also given the Abrams superior communication systems, admirable fire capability, and resilient countermeasures. It is without a doubt one of, if not the best tank ever built. Number 1. F15 Series. In actual combat, the F15 series of variant aircraft boasts an impeccable record, with a kill ratio of 104-0 and no losses in over 40 years of service with the U.S. Air Force. Throughout multiple combat engagements, the F-15E demonstrated its ability to attack in all conditions, all weather, rain or shine, and day or night. Its targeting technology has the ability to follow an enemy jet while simultaneously marking out facilities and other ground-based equipment for its precision-guided bombs. One of the aircraft's best features is the Mach 2.5 speed. The fighter is capable of launching air-to-air Sidewinders and Sparrows while carrying small-diameter bombs and JDAMs and other laser-guided bombs. The arsenal also has an M61 Vulcan 20mm rotating Gatling gun. These aircraft are equipped with an electronic warfare suite that safeguards jamming and offers defense. The Vietnam War demonstrated the necessity for an air dominance fighter for the U.S. Air Force, one that could outperform enemy aircraft and perform well in close air support tasks. The F-4 Phantom workhorse could quickly be replaced by this new aircraft. In the late 1960s, 3 teams from Fairchild-Hiller, North American Rockwell, and McDonnell Douglas competed in a 2-year-long FX competition. Due to its impressive performance and reasonable price, McDonnell was chosen as the winner of the 1969 proposal for the new Advanced Tactical Fighter program. In just under 3 years, designers and engineers were able to produce an airplane that lived up to McDonnell's expectations. In 1972, the first pilot took to the skies in an F-15 known as the Eagle. Later on in that same year, the fighter began bulk production. The Streak Eagle was the name of one of the first F-15A types to be delivered. A number of time-to-climb records were broken by this aircraft, and many records of high-altitude flight as well. It stood out from other fighters because of its remarkable thrust capability and ability to ascend vertically. Even though the Air Force preferred this air superiority role, acquisition authorities preferred an F-15 that could fly lower to the ground for close air support missions. This resulted in the 1986 debut of the F-15E Strike Eagle. The Strike Eagle featured a superior navigation system and infrared targeting, and it could also carry 23,000 pounds of ammunition. The fast Mach 2.5 speed was beyond helpful, too. In 1982, the Israeli F-15s downed over 50 Syrian aircraft without suffering a single F-15 loss. During Operation Desert Storm, the F-15C and D aircraft of the United States Air Force had flawless records against Iraqi aircraft, winning 34 dogfights against the MiG-29 and Mirage F-1 aircraft. After years of realistic preparation during the Red Flag exercises in Las Vegas, Operation Desert Storm served as the Air Force's debut of the plane. The 58th Tactical Fighter Squadron and F-15 Squadron recorded 12 victories over Iraq. Several of the pilots had multiple personal victories. The performance of this unit impressed pilots. They dreaded the worst before the conflict, though, since they had no idea what to anticipate in battle. Later on in the 1990s, F-15 versions even showed their skill over the former Yugoslavian skies, downing a number of MiG fighters flown by Serbia in 1995. In 1999, a single squadron of F-15Cs recorded 4 victories over MiG-29s. After the 9/11 tragedy, the F-15E Strike Eagles yet again played a significant part in missions over Iraq and Afghanistan. F-15E aircraft were sent over Afghanistan to destroy Taliban supply centers and targets. An incredible 15.5 hours were spent on one F-15E's mission, which included 12 refueling stops. While frequently dropping bombs and firing cannons close to friendly forces, the F-15E pilots demonstrated their superior close air support skills. Early on in Operation Iraqi Freedom, the F-15E was in Iraq, busy hitting air defenses and destroying enemy aircraft on the ground. F-15E aircraft destroyed over 60% of the Iraqi Medina Republican Guard during the fighting. They also successfully attacked 65 MiGs that were set on the ground. The Strike Eagle is only one of several F-15 variants that have had a lasting impact. Their military record is outstanding. It's beyond pilot-friendly, so the upgrades made over the years were necessary. Its unique quality is undoubtedly versatility. It's hard to imagine the Air Force without this aircraft. Thanks for watching. Have you heard of any of these weapons before? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for another amazing video right here on American Eye.